4 into 100-meter relay is there. One person is running first 100 meters and then handing over the baton to someone person, and then he is continuing. Or in the old days, we used to have circus, and one person is swinging from one swing to one end, and then he's changing over to the other person like this. So, or when we walk also, we remove one leg and put one leg forward. The yoga means you're connecting. So to connect to something, you have to give up your existing connection, and that is known as sannyasa. Sannyasa means you are giving up something for a higher purpose. The higher purpose is said to be yoga. Just like you're moving from one class to another class, first standard to second standard, because you want to get higher knowledge. So if these are in perfect synchrony, you're giving up something means you have to get something better. So that is why it says yoga and sannyasa are the same. Now, as we said in the beginning, there are two levels of this Ashtanga yoga, beginning stage and advanced stage. So throughout this, we'll see about how the mind can be both the friend and the enemy. So the mind can play dual roles. And so that depends on our fixed intelligence. We have the intelligence is fixed, then the mind becomes the friend. The intelligence is not fixed, then it becomes the mind. Same mind becomes the enemy. Just like a knife is there. If you know how to use the knife, you can do a surgery. But if you don't know how to use it, you can kill the patient. Then Krishna is talking about the symptoms of a person in the advanced yoga stage of yoga. Just like if you have done a course, the course objectives are there, and you have to see later whether the course objectives have been met. Then here Krishna talks about the stages of the Ashtanga yoga practice, and then the practicing stage. What are the basic practices? What are the recommendations, and what is the goal? These three things are described. So once you have attained perfection in this process, how do you know that I have attained perfection? What will be your experience? And what are the characteristics of a person who has attained this perfection? So here it says the perfection is to realize the super soul. Right now, many people don't even know that we are the soul. We see matter around us and we think our body is made out of matter. But among these people, there are very few who can realize that there is a soul, and that soul continues to exist after the body dies. But beyond that is to recognize that there is a super soul who is bringing all these souls and matter together. Just because soul is there, matter is there, they don't combine. Just like oil and water, they don't combine unless you create an emulsion. Or some things don't unite unless there is a uniting agent. So this super soul is the person who brings together the soul and fixes it in one particular body. So some people are able to realize that his presence is very important. So I give many examples to show that there are many things which are important, or many people are important, but we may not see them perceptibly. But without them, just like without the electrical department, I cannot do this program. They are behind the scene, but they are important. So the super soul is so important. So how to attain this perfectional stage? And in the process, supposing you are failed to control the mind, the purpose of this yoga is to control the mind. But in the process, if you failed, then how do you bring it back to the right position? So the platforms of the Brahma Bhuta, realizing Atma. Brahma means the spirit soul. Brahman can also mean an aspect of the Supreme Lord. And Bhuta means realizing. How do you really feel that I am the soul? And Brahma Sansparsha. There are two things here mentioned, Brahma and Brahma, two words are there, but Brahma Bhuta means realizing yourself. Brahma Sansparsha means realizing the super soul. Why we have to realize the super soul? Because as we saw in the last chapter, he is the ever-evolutioner, benefactor, and he is the proprietor, and so he is and seeing Krishna everywhere. So if you can realize the Paramatma, this is known as the localized aspect, that how he is present everywhere, even within the atom. The atom is our smallest of the element is the atom, but that is also working perfectly, which means there is some living conscious entity in that. And the biggest of the biggest also is very moving perfectly. So which means there's just like a sun planet is there. It is going perfectly means there must be a conscious entity. So to realize this is perfection. So then how does a perfect yogi act? In the second chapter also this question was asked about the Sthita Prajna. How do you know a person is knowledgeable? Sometimes he may not even speak to us. But under certain conditions, he may exhibit his talents. Similarly, the person who is doing this yoga process is attain perfection. How do we recognize his position based on his actions? So this chapter also talks about the necessity of controlling the mind. First of all, is it required? Some people think we have to leave the mind free, let it go, let it. That is some perception. But here it says, what is the absolute necessity? There is no option. You have to control. And now Arjuna's concern was at this stage that this Ashtanga yoga is impractical because it involves so many rules and regulations. And why he cannot follow the rules and regulation? Because the mind itself is the problem. He's trying to solve the problem of the mind by doing something, but to do those things, the mind cooperation is required. So it is a vicious circle. So he doesn't know how to get out of it. But then Krishna offers the solution that by suitable practice and detachment, these two words are very important. The practice makes a man perfect. We all know that. Many things when we began, supposing you are learning to drive a car, it looks a very big task for us. But once you have practiced it, it becomes an effortless thing. So practice is one way. Another thing is detachment. Detachment means we should know how to engage the mind. Supposing the mind is getting distracted by something. If you offer it a positive engagement, automatically the mind shifts its focus. So that art we should know. That's why Krishna here says detachment. And then the conclusion is mind control is must for progress. If you want to really progress, you have to control the mind. Now, Arjuna's question was, what is the destination of an unsuccessful yogi? Okay, I'm putting all my effort, time, and energy into this. Supposing I go wrong, so what will be my fate? So Krishna's reply is, as he told in the second chapter also, there is no loss. Why it is no loss? He tells, depending on where you fall off. Supposing you have taken a course and you are not struggling with that course. Either you have the option to drop out in the beginning, but that's fine. But what happens at the end of the course? Almost I'm finishing. There are some people who are almost completing their PhD, but they give up. So like that, he is asking. Krishna is telling that depending on where, at what stage you fall off, there is a backup plan. You know? So, but nevertheless, he will go on to achieve perfection. The failure also helps as a stepping stone to success. So how is it possible? Krishna will explain. Ultimately, Krishna concludes this chapter by telling that among the three processes of yoga, one is karma yoga, another is jnana yoga, and the third is bhakti yoga. So this is said to be the best. So in order to explain that, he says a yogi. Here, yogi refers to a bhakti yogi. Is better than tapasvi. Tapasvi means some person is simply practicing austerities. He thinks that if I am very austere, I will achieve success. Another person thinks by cultivating knowledge, I will attain success. Knowledge is power. Jnanam paramam dehyam. That is the motto of IIT Bombay. And then Siddhir Bhavati Karma, a motto of IIT Madras. So some people think you can achieve perfection through work, through knowledge, or through austerities. But better than that is Krishna saying that a Bhakta Yogi who's practicing devotion is greater. So in the previous chapter, Krishna described how to attain liberation. So liberation means being situated on the platform of the soul, where you are free to act like the soul. So to attain that stage, one has to practice Nishkama Karma Yoga. Nishkama Karma means to realize that by trying to fulfill my desires, I will not be happy. But only through work I can get satisfaction. So that work, I have to improve the quality of the work, the nature of the work. That is the only thing which can make me satisfied. Just like when we were a child, we enjoyed going to school, but then the motivation was something different. But now we don't no longer do those things. Those things will not give us happiness. Something else is giving happiness. But the main thing is the work which is giving us the happiness. So here Nishkama Karma means no longer the desires are motivating your work. The work itself becomes the motivation. Hmm. So then Krishna talks about the Ashtanga Yoga process in the beginning, the end of the last chapter, how we can attain perfection through work. So in this chapter, he goes into details of this Ashtanga Yoga, eight limbs of the yoga process. And basically it is to control the mind and the senses. Although mind and senses are the lowest position, the material dull matter is unconscious matter. Above this is the senses, above that the mind, above the intelligence, above that is the ego, and above that is the conscious soul, and above that is the supreme soul. But right now we are struggling with the basics. Supposing a huge ship is there, as the Titanic was there, the problem didn't start in the top. The problem started in the bottom. So like that, our problem begins with the most simple thing, that is the mind and senses. So before we go to this yoga practice, there are some prerequisites. And Krishna says that this first you have to practice Nishkama Karma Yoga. That is, you try to come to the platform of desirelessness. Of course, we cannot be desireless, but the type of desire we can change. Same example, when I was a child, I had some desire. Now I have a different desire, but nevertheless, I get motivated to do some work. So even if you want to regulate, you're supposing you have not, you're disturbed by something, and then you come and sit in the class, that will keep on distracting you. So better is you go and finish that work, settle down, and then come to the next thing. Similarly, to practice Ashtanga Yoga, some basic mind and sense control is a must. Without that, you cannot even begin this process. So in order to have some basic mind and sense control, it's better that you go through this Nishkama Karma Yoga. And moreover, in this particular age and circumstances, this Ashtanga Yoga is very difficult. Just like I also attended a morning a yoga session, but that yoga institution is struggling to maintain that attendance. Why? Because even though people know it is benefit for them, it's much cheaper than the other ways of physical upkeeping. But people are not able to attend, and even if they attend, they're struggling with all the postures. So and that too for half an hour, 1 hour maximum. But if that is the case, then what to speak about the entire yoga process? So as I said, there are the beginning stage and the ending stage. Supposing you have started a reaction, you should know whether the reaction has started and when the reaction is completed. So that is known as the Arurukshu and the Aruda. So who is a real sannyasi? Sannyasi means we have to sacrifice something. Supposing you are buying something, you have to spend some money. You have to spend some time, spend some energy. But it should be beneficial. So that's why it says a real sannyasi. Who is a real sannyasi? Which means who is the one who is sacrificing his time, energy, and words or whatever for the right purpose. And how do you know he's a yogi or he has attained what he wants, what he has to obtain? Anashrita karma phalam. One who is unattached to the fruits of his work. Why he is unattached to the fruits of the work? Because he is not the cause for the fruits. He is not the only cause. He may be one of the causes for the result. So therefore, he cannot be attached to the results of his work. If he thinks, then he has to keep quarreling with the other factors, fighting with the other factors, which most of us are doing. One who is unattached to the fruits of his work, because the fruits are not going to ultimately give us happiness. The work only, as I said repeatedly, the work is only going to give us happiness. Some people, they're not satisfied with the salary also, in the sense that because the job it's not giving satisfaction, even if they're getting good salaries and all benefits, they're not happy with the job. So Karyam karma karotiya, dutifully performs his prescribed work. Here says Karyam karma, which means what he is supposed to do. How does he know what I am supposed to do? Like this mic is there, as long as I use it as a mic, it is doing its job perfectly. So similarly, the prescribed duties are there, which are given by scriptures, just like a doctor gives a specific prescription for a specific remedy or a patient. Similarly, we have to know what is my prescribed duty. And Sir Sannyasi Chu Yogi is a real sannyasi or true yogi. So he knows what to give up and what to attain. Na niragna chakriya. In the contrary to this, there's some person who thinks that I will not do any work. I will avoid. I mean, intelligently he tries to avoid some works. Just like some people intelligently avoided this session. They think it's a waste of time. Or you may think something else is waste of time. So people think that I better avoid some works. Na niragnir na chakriyaha. Or they know what to do, but they are not willing to spend the required energy. Supposing you know some things are really very good, but then you think, okay, maybe I cannot spend so much. Some people don't even know the importance of thing, and even if they know, they think it's not worth the spend. So one who desires practicing Ashtang Yoga should not suddenly give up prescribed duties. So basically, trying to emphasize how important is prescribed duties. Just like a doctor, supposing he is given a medicine or a course of treatment, he will say, first you complete this course, then we'll think about the next step. Some people may think, no, I'm not interested, I'll directly go to the next step. So why Krishna is saying that you first do this Nishkama Karma Yoga and then do, although Ashtanga Yoga may be more beneficial, better you start with Nishkama Karma because you need to first purify the heart. Hmm. Supposing you're doing a reaction with some metal and the metal has to be 99.9% purity, but you decide, no problem, I'll just start the reaction with whatever purity. Obviously, totally unwanted things can happen also. Huh? So although working, since a karma yogi renounces the results of his action, he is called a sannyasi. What is he renouncing? Which means he knows how to use the result of every action. Every action I do, some reaction is the result is coming. But some people think, oh, this is not sufficient. Supposing you're working and you're getting some salary. Some person thinks, okay, this salary is no good, this job is no good. But another person, he calculates, okay, it doesn't matter. I'm getting only this much. This I will invest here, like that he calculates and he is prosperous. Because his mind doesn't dwell on the enjoyment of sense objects, he's called a yogi. So the mind needs proper engagement. But if the mind is not following the direction of the intelligence, it will naturally go just like the horses are there. They cover the eyes of the horses with some shield. Otherwise, the horse will go whichever way it wants to go. So the mind's nature is to follow the sense objects. Sense objects means I see something, I get attracted to that. I hear, smell, taste, and touch. Immediately, the mind drags me, the intelligence, in that direction. So, but a yogi, he knows how to direct the mind, just like a person who's able to direct the horses of the chariot. Detached action is the same as renunciation. One can never become yogi unless he renounces desire for sense gratification. So, in other words, if you are giving up some lower desire, you should have already cultivated a higher desire. Supposing you are working for your PhD and you know already a job is waiting for you, you can motivate yourself to do that better and also tell your guy to relieve you fast, isn't it? But if you have no job waiting, then you think, let me continue this. Or he may think, let him continue some more time. So that is the problem. So sannyasa and yoga should match properly. If you Sannyasa means to fix in jnana characteristic by stopping the function of the senses or renouncing the results of action. So here what is this? Stopping the functions of the senses. Obviously, you cannot stop the senses. You cannot close eyes, ears, and nose. So here stopping means stopping them from going in the wrong direction. And how is that possible? Renouncing the results of actions. So you should be always know what to do next. Many people, you see, they get struggling as to what to do next. Like Arjuna was confused, means he didn't know what to do next. Although he was very capable, very intelligent, he came to a point where he didn't know what to do next. So this can happen in very successful person's life also. They reach a stage where they don't know what to do next, and that's when the downfall starts. So Krishna told In the first two verses about the Ashtanga Yoga, one who's taken to Ashtanga Yoga should not give up Nishkama Karma Yoga, which means even if you begin the Ashtanga Yoga process, just like the aircraft is there, before it flies, for some time it has to run on the runway. It cannot suddenly fly off from where it is. So similarly, even if you want to begin Ashtanga Yoga, you should continue for some time with the Nishkama Karma Yoga also. Hmm. Then the next question is, should we continue this Ashtanga Yoga process forever? Hmm. Supposing you have joined here and you think, okay, let me continue my life here. Then Krishna talks about this levels of Ashtanga Yoga. How do I know I'm beginning and how do I know where I'm ending in the yoga process? So first it begins with Yama. Yama means don'ts. Just like if you are in a serious disease, the doctor first starts with what you should not do. Uh, don't do this, don't do that, don't eat this, all that he says. So don'ts are the Yama. Regulations are prohibitions. You're cutting down on some things or prohibiting. Either you reduce your intake of something or don't even take. The next is niyama, which means you have to do something positive. Okay, you have to wake up early in the morning, you have to take bath, you have to do this so many times. That is the niyama. Your niyama means you are regulating yourself. uh, These are prescriptions. And then asana, sitting posture. Just like if I'm sitting like this, I also become dull, and you also, the listener also becomes dull. But when we sit erect, then there is some channelizing of the energy. So sitting is also important. That is known as asana. And then, or it can also mean the bodily exercises. And then it also talks about pranayama, breath control, because there's a connection between the mind and the breathing. Sometimes if you're too angry or too agitated, if you breathe, just do some breathing exercises, your mind calms down. Hmm. Just you can see some people when they're very angry, the breath is very too fast or it is too slow, then it's a problem. So therefore, this mind and breathing is very important. So we have to practice the breathing exercises. Of course, when we'll do one session of chanting, if you do the chanting session properly, your breathing also becomes regulated. Then pratyahara. Ahara means food. The food means different type, not only the eating food. We are always in searching for something, resources. I want this, I want that. But we have to regulate that also. If you make a plan, I will build this house, I will buy a car, I will do this, that, then it becomes over endeavor. So withdrawing the senses from the sense objects, which means if I spend too much time meditating on what I see, smell, taste, and touch, then it distracts me. Then dharana, fixing, okay, these are all the like negative things, more or less, which means don't do this, do this. But then what is the positive engagement? So that is the fixing the mind on the Lord's form. Just like, let us say I tell you, don't waste your time on this, don't do this, don't do this. But then what I should do? Then I say something positive. The positive part is you mixed on the form. Here form means understanding the qualities and activities and glories of the super soul. Why? Why we should fix on the super soul? Because he is the only person who is always accompanying with us. No matter how many lives we take, only the person accompanying us is the super soul. So at least we should know about him. And then dhyana, intensified meditation. You go deeper into thinking about it and functions of the soul. And then samadhi, complete absorption, where you are perfectly in connection with the super soul. The super soul is telling you, do this immediately. Some people you see, some experts are there. Very split second decisions they are able to do, split second actions they are able to do. Why? Some prodigies are there, very quickly, dexterously they are able to do, because they are one kind of a yogi. The super soul is telling them, you do this, immediately the senses are following that. So these are the Ashtanga Yoga process. Now, where do we begin this process? So beginning is we have to do our prescribed duties. Just like artificially, you cannot go and join a yoga society. You have some responsibilities. You're a family man or a student or working, whatever. That has to be continued, and maybe side by side you can do this. So we have to perform a prescribed duty. Why? Because that is the cause for elevation. Just like a person is recovering from some disease, he has to follow the prescription. So similarly, something has been prescribed for us means it is for our progress. We can see one should cultivate detachment and also practice. So here detachment means there are something very important and something less important. So time management or whatever we say, that is possible only when we set some priorities. So we should know how to, we cannot spend too much time or too less time at the lower stages. You should know how much time, how much energy, how much effort I should put, and then next go to the next stage. That gradually purifies the heart from fruitive desires. So ultimately, what are we trying to achieve? Our mind is getting distracted by unwanted things. So how to channelize the mind in such situations? Then in the advanced stage, when one is completely purified of material desires, which means the unwanted desires are no longer disturbing him, just like a person is playing on the ground, cricket field. So many distractions are there, but he is remaining focused on his job. So when you reach that stage, he can give up Nishkama Karma and practice Ashtanga Yoga exclusively. Mm. Then only he can follow all the rules and regulations. Just like some child is there, you ask him to follow so many rules and regulations, he will not be able to follow. He has to attain some maturity. Uh, then one either acts for sense gratification or engages in fruitive activities. So, what are the two problems? One is acting for sense gratification, which means you are trying to do more than required. Supposing you eat more than required, sleep more than required, or do more recreation than required, then it is going to be sense gratification. And fruitive activities means, fruitive means although you work hard for it, you are not going to get the result anyway. Why waste your time and energy in doing something you know very well you are not going to get the result? Supposing you decide, I want to become the prime minister, you know the chances are very less because you are nowhere close to that. So these are, this is the stage of steady meditation, dhyana. Now, so already we saw the 8 limbs depicted in the flow chart, but the main thing is the mind control. Unless the mind is engaged properly, uh, and detachment from sense objects, which means the senses are always distracting us. I see something, I always think about it. Because you saw in the second chapter, the cause for fall down is attachment to the Dhyayate Vishayan Pumsaha. If you see something and keep on thinking about what you saw, heard, or someone abused you, heard abuses, or if you, that is the detachment sense objects are the requirements to come to the yoga road. At least to begin this yoga process, some basic mind control, just like you are here, means some mind control you have practiced or some sense control you have. So in the next, Krishna describes the importance of mind control and discourages Arjuna, indicating the impracticality of the path. So at the end of fifth chapter, Krishna told two choices are there. Either you go through the step-by-step process, or you directly take to devotion. Devotion means you are guided personally by God or his representative. Hmm? Now, next, it talks about how the mind is both the friend and enemy. Very important words. Uddaredatman atmanam atmanam avasadayet atmaiva hi atmano bandhur atmaiva ripuratmanaha. So we tend to make friends and we also make some enemies, but they are secondary. The real friend and real enemy is our own mind. The same mind, supposing a mirror is there, the mirror is dirty, that mirror will give a false image of yourself. So someone is appearing like a friend or enemy or neutral person, it depends on the status of your mind. So one must deliver himself, that is the soul, by the mind. One shouldn't degrade himself by distracted senses. The controlled mind is the friend of the soul. Uncontrolled mind is the enemy of the soul. Hmm? Very simple explanation. Why? Bandhuratma atmanastasya yenatma yenatmaivatmana jitaha anatmanastu shatrutve vartetatmaiva shatruvat. Same thing repeated again. The mind is the best of friends for one who has controlled it. The mind is the greatest enemy for one who has failed to conquer it. Because it is a very important section, Krishna is repeating it in two different ways. That is how it is a friend or an enemy. If you control it, it is your friend. If you don't control it, it's your enemy. So ultimately, your destiny is in your hands. We cannot blame others. We cannot blame the situation. We are in a particular situation because of our mind, and you can get out of the situation only with the mind. Even if you have the best of things, unless your mind is going to cooperate with you, you just cannot get out of it. So, okay, now I'm struggling with my mind. How do I know I can really conquer the mind? By looking at people who have controlled the mind. Supposing you're beginning a course and you're thinking whether this course will really help you or not. If you see someone who is successful in that course, then that will motivate you. Yes, he achieved it, so I can also do it. So how do I recognize a person who has conquered the mind? Symptoms of a person in the yoga stage, or what is the motivation for me to go through this yoga process? What is the goal I can achieve? Jitatmana prashantasya. First, he is able to jitatma, means control the mind. Atma can mean the mind, Atma can mean the body, Atma can mean the soul also. But here it refers to the controlling the mind. And prashantasya, tranquility. Tranquility means the mind is peaceful. Uh, Just like a dog is there, it can be a wild dog, but once you tame it, that same wild dog can become your pet. So similarly, the mind right now is like a very ferocious, but if you train it nice, like a lion is there, sometimes it can be tamed. So the attain tranquility, at least it's cooperating. It will not suddenly the mind will not become still, but mind is doing its mischief, but at least it will cooperate. Uh, Paramatma samahitaha, completely approach the super soul. He is always able to see the presence of the Lord with him. Hmm. Um, Shitoshna Sukha Dukkeshu Tata Manapamana Yoho. So these are the four problems we always face in life. Neutral to dualities, heat and cold. Physical. See, in the bodily level, there are so many disturbances. Supposing I'm not well today, I'll be disturbed. So bodily, the mind is going through so many ups and downs. So here it says neutral to all dualities, heat and cold, happiness and distress at the mental level. Sometimes there's no reason to be happy or no reason to be distressed, but the mind gets into that. Honor and dishonor. So that is at the ego level. Three levels are there at the bodily level, the mental level, and the ego level. There can be disturbances, but one who has controlled the mind, he can tolerate these disturbances. Jnana, Vijnana, Triptatma. How he is able to do? Satisfied in shastric knowledge and realization. Something is already established. Then if you have conviction in that, then you won't be disturbed by these three things. Satisfied in shastric knowledge and realization. Kutasto. Kuta means situated. Situated means sto. Kuta means transcendence. Vijitendriya, self-control. Situated in transcendence, which means he is unaffected by the three modes. Three modes means constantly our nature is changing. The nature of people around us is changing. The situations are constantly changing. But situated in transcendence means he is not affected by these changes. And self-control, yukta ityuchyate yogi. Self-realize is called yogi or mystic. Yogi means mystic means perfection. And yukta means self-realized. He is always just like an. And what is the next symptom? Sama loshtrashma kanchana, equal vision of pebble, stone, or gold. Now one may ask, how can you equate a pebble and a stone and gold? They are different, price value is different. The material of which it is made is different. No, each of them have their relative utility. Sometimes pebbles will serve the purpose, just like one crow was there. It wanted to drink water from a pitcher or a pot, but the water level was so small, less. Then what it did, it started putting some pebbles, and slowly the water level rose up, and then it could drink. So you cannot in that you can not put. I mean, cannot put lumps of gold there. Pebbles will serve the purpose, or sometimes stone may be required. So sometimes gold may fit the role. So equal vision of pebbles, stone, or gold. Suhrin mitra udasina madhyastha dveshya bandhushu sadhushvapi cha papeshu samabuddhir vishishyate. So further advanced person equipays to all people, well-wishers, benefactors, the neutral mediators, the envious, friends and enemies, the pious and the sinners. Just like you go to a movie or a drama, you have paid the ticket for the movie or the drama, and in that you see so many players are there. One is a hero, one villain. Because you paid the ticket, you are able to get entertained by different people. So according to our own karma in the past, you paid for it. And to repay it, people come in different ways. No? So someone may appear to be a friend, or someone may, they are playing their roles because you purchased it by your own actions. Uh, so, so he is able to see that. And basically, he takes responsibility for everything. He, because the solution comes only when he takes responsibility, he owns it. If he owns unless he owns the problem, he is not going to be able to solve it. Uh, Krishna will now describe the activities in the practice stage, the method to achieve the final goal. Okay, if you are convinced that you want to reach this stage, then how do I begin? So first is in the beginning stage, always engaging body, mind, and self in samadhi, yoga yunjita. Sorry, here is talking about the perfectional stage, that is yoga ruda stage. And one who has already attained perfection, he also has to do some practice. Supposing you have already achieved some perfection, still you cannot sit idle. You have to do something to maintain that position, isn't it? Some person is a very expert batsman or bowler. When there's no cricket match, he doesn't sit idle. He also goes to net practice or does something. So always engaging body and mind in samadhi, yoga yunjita satatam. So what is samadhi? We'll see. Then living alone in a secluded place, rahasi stitaha. Rahasi means secluded. Stitaha means situated. Ekaki means alone. Hmm? Living alone in a secluded place, is it possible? Practically, it is not possible nowadays, at least. Or you can do, but even if you're a secluded place, your mind will make a lot of mischief. So always carefully controlling mind. Yata chittatma. Here it says carefully controlling the mind, because the slight inattention, the mind will go. Ah, so therefore, carefully you should control it. Free from all desires and possessives. Nirashi aparigraha. Always the mind is trying to fulfill some desires and become possessed. Possessed, you say a person is possessed by some ghost, which means he is not able to take his mind away from certain things. He saw something, he heard something, his mind is simply thinking about it. All the mentally retarded people, what is the problem? Something happened in their life and the mind is not able to come out of it. So in the advanced stage, these problems will not be there. But in the beginning stage, one should sit firmly in a clean, sacred, and secluded place. Just like if we could have done this class anywhere, but we chose this particular place, this is somewhat favorable. So similarly, if you have to practice yoga, you have to sit firmly. I cannot keep walking and talking. Of course, some people may do that, but I am more comfortable sitting and you are also comfortable sitting in one place. So similarly to you practice yoga, you have to sit firmly in a clean, sacred and secluded place. Usually it refers to the pilgrimage sites, and not too high, not too low. If it is too low, some insects or reptiles will be there. They will disturb you. If I sit on the floor, sometimes there may be some insects crawling. And if I'm too high, then every time I have to get up and get down, it's an effort. And with the deer skin, why they used to use deer skin? The deer skin has some antiseptic properties. So when insects or reptiles will not crawl on the deer skin. And the next is cloth. But deer skin has some hair on it. So when you sit on that, basically it says you have to make your position comfortable, first of all. Then fixing the mind on one point, controlling the mind and senses. So mind will maybe so many thoughts are coming. Unless you have a mantra or a sound, you cannot fix the mind on. Uh, one should do yoga for purification of the consciousness. So just like if you want to see through some water, pond is there and a jewel is there, you dropped it in the pond and it has fallen into the well or something. And if you want to look at it, what is the best situation? When the water is still. Somehow if you are able to make the water still, or if in more, if you can make it ice or something, then you can see through it clearly. So by fixing the mind, he is able to feel the presence of the soul. Being erect by keeping the body, neck, and head straight. Because there are some energy channels, there are no such chakras, 6 energy points in our body. These have relation to the planets also. Our planetary movements also affect our body, mind. So there are energy centers in our body, and if there is some disturbance there, then it affects not only us, affects others also, and sometimes the universe also. So being erect by keeping body, neck, and head straight, being motionless and firm, staring steadily at the tip of the nose. Why we have to stare tip of the nose? When you're staring at the tip of the nose, your eyes will not see in 2 different directions. So to avoid distraction due to the eye. Just like Vishwamitra Muni, he was meditating. Just by hearing, he got distracted. Someone, Saubari Muni, just by seeing, he got distracted. So therefore, this is telling about regulating and meditating on my form, machitta. So then, okay, you're saying not to do this, don't do this, do this. Okay, after you come to this class, you should pay your attention to someone at least. I'm speaking, so you're able to pay attention. Similarly, the super soul, you have to meditate on that super soul. How can you meditate unless you know about him, unless he is present there? Supposing I don't know how to use this laptop, I will just sit before it. I will not know anything. But if I know, immediately I can do so many things. Similarly, the super soul is the most important with us. And if you don't know, then we will not recognize its importance. So then what is the goal of this process? Okay, I have explained the process. What are the basic things you need? Then what will we achieve? Uh, one attains cessation of material existence. The example we gave last session, the lotus is there. It is in dirty water, but it's unaffected. It is so beautiful. Although it is in the most impure place, it is very beautiful. So we may find so many problems around us, but if we are fixed in this yoga, we will not be affected. Just like a very expert player is there, it's a audience is there, in the stadium, lakhs of people are there, they're shouting and making a lot of noise, distraction, but he's not disturbed. He is the cessation of material existence, nirvana, paramam, and Lord's kingdom. He attains the Lord's kingdom. Even if you may say, okay, with all these disturbances, I'm doing up to my best. And you will say, if these disturbances are not there, I can do much better than what I'm doing. So then Krishna arranges that also for you. Right now, in the struggling situation, you're doing your best. He will put you in a situation when there is no struggle at all. So that is the kingdom of God. Now, what are some recommendations? If you are willing to follow this process, some recommendations are diet control. Don't eat too much or too little. If you eat too much, you also become diseased. If you become eat too little, also you become diseased. Now, what is little and more? That depends, subjective. An elephant, for example, it can eat 100 kilograms. An ant can eat only a few grams. So, depending on your bodily constitution, you have to define what is more and what is less. But it should be ultimately the purpose of your eating is to facilitate your work. Then sleeping. If you sleep too much, also you become lazy and you keep on dreaming during the daytime. And if you sleep too less, also you get distracted while doing work. So, what is how much time I should sleep? That is again subjective. Some people they have to sleep 8 hours. The Gary Kasparov, they used to sleep 12 hours. Some people they need to sleep more. Some people have to sleep less. So that you have to decide depending on your work. But ideally, 6 hours is good. Regulation in habits of eating, sleeping, recreation, and work. Four things have to be regulated. One is the eating, the sleeping, recreation also required. That's why we say the Kshatriyas, they used to gamble also. They go for hunting. So some recreation, but not too much recreation. They say all play and no study makes, uh, and other way also it is there. He is only studying and not playing. That is also problem. And so what is the result? Dukkha. Work in yoga mitigates all material suffering. Yuktahara viharasya yukta chestasya karmasu yukta swapnavabodhasya yogo bhavati dukkha. So ultimate purpose of yoga is dukkha. Dukkha means to get free from miseries. Now, if you this is for the beginning or practicing stage. Okay, let us say I already began it and practiced it. What is the perfection? Disciplining mental activities or consciousness. Viniyatam chittam. Unless we regulate, discipline the mind, just like same example, if the water is agitated, I cannot see through it. Actually, I am getting knowledge from myself. Although it looks like I am getting knowledge from outside, uh, just like the people who are hearing me on the internet, uh, there's a channel by which they are receiving the knowledge. So similarly, although just like eyes are there, and supposing sunlight is there outside, that is one requirement for see an object. But let us say my eyes are not good. Even if sunlight is there and the object is there, I may not see. So similarly, to recognize or perceive objects around you, you need to also be conscious. So Both are required. Disciplining mental activities or consciousness, being fixed in self or transcendence, Atmanya evavatishtate, devoid of material desires. So fixed in transcendence means he is able to select his desires. Ah, okay, this desire is not good for me. There's no point in pursuing this desire. This desire is required. For example, when you join some companies, they say, or before you join, they ask you, what is your 5-year plan? You may not have a plan, but they want to know how you plan, because unless you have desire, you can't get motivate yourself. Drive, they call it. So devoid of all material desires. So just as a lamp in a windless place does not waver. So the analogy is given. Just a lamp is there, it is giving you heat and light. But let us say there's a wind blowing, then the light and the heat will not be steady. Similarly, the soul is by nature conscious. It can be happy. It doesn't need anyone to give happiness or give knowledge or to realize its existence. But if there's a disturbance around it, so the yogi whose mind is controlled, yata chittasya, remains steady in its meditation on the self. Yata deepo nivatasto nengate sopama smrita yogino yata chittasya yunjita yogam atmanaha. So now further going, what is the realization? Ah, so one is knowing something and realizing something. Just like you're eating food, but that doesn't mean you become healthy immediately. That has to be digested. Uh, So how do you know you're digesting this? Uh, Consciousness completely restrained from material mental activities. The mind is giving so many options, so many thoughts are going, but you're not feeding those thoughts. Just like a dog is there. If you don't feed it, it'll shout for some time, but that will calm down. Similarly, the mind is always telling you so many options. As long as you don't feed it, naturally it will subside. One can see the self by pure mind and be satisfied with it. Ultimately, satisfaction is coming from the soul only. Although we think by eating I am getting some nourishment, there are many people who eat a lot, but still they are malnourished or undernourished. Why? Because they're not digesting it. Ultimately, the body has to accept that food which you're eating. Similarly, unless the soul is satisfied, no matter what you do with the body and the body and the senses, it is not going to be satisfied. One gets boundless spiritual bliss by spiritual intelligence, not material senses. Ultimately, the soul has to be activated. Mm. Then only sometimes the best doctor is there, best medicine is there, but the patient is not recovering. Which means there is a case where a person was in the 4th stage cancer and gone into coma, but then that patient recovered. Why? Because she came out of the body and she could feel that she is the soul, and she could connect with the soul of her brother and father who had already passed away. So one gets boundless spiritual bliss by spiritual intelligence, not one is never deviated from the truth of one's spiritual nature. So once you start getting happiness from the soul, you won't feel the need for any other happiness. Hmm? And having obtained this, he thinks he has no greater gain. So situated in full determination. So then once he is fully convinced about it, then he becomes determined, is never shaken even in the greatest difficulty. So this is a very important point. Yam labdva cha aparam labam. There's no greater gain. Having achieved this, he thinks there's no further gain. Manyate nadikam. There's nothing greater than this. Yasmin stito na dukkena. Then he's dukkena means even if there is uh, a situation for distress, Guru Napi Vichalyate, he doesn't shake from his position like a tsunami is coming. But let us say you're in a very good, well constructed ship or a boat. Then even if the tsunami comes, you are just like there was a tidal wave in the Orissa cyclone, super cyclone was there. One lady got stuck to a tree and nothing happened to her. So Guru Napi means very serious. Vichalyate, even in such situation. This stage of samadhi or trance called asampragnata samadhi is the real freedom from all material misery. So what is this asampragnata? So there are two types of samadhi. A person is very stable. You see someone who's a person is not at all disturbed. But there are conditions. Under certain conditions, he is not disturbed. Supposing I am now very peaceful because the power is there, light is there, fan is there, AC is there, everything. So I am peaceful. Supposing this is not there, suddenly power goes off, light goes off, fan goes off, then I may become disturbed. But there are some people, even if that favorable situation is not there, they will not be disturbed. So this is explained here. Sampragnata Samadhi involves meditation on various gross or subtle objects, which means he is peaceful as long as his senses are peaceful. So for some people, supposing a child is here, I ask him to sit quietly, he cannot sit quietly. I have to give him some food or something engagement, then he will sit quietly. So similarly, so for some people, they can be peaceful if their senses are satisfied. Huh? That is the Sampragnata Samadhi. One comes to transcendental position by various philosophical researches, which means he has to be convinced intellectually. Logically, you have to convince him. But some things cannot be convinced all the time based on logic. That is a higher stage. So that is Asampragnat Samadhi. It involves meditation with no object. One becomes transcendental to all sorts of happiness derived from the senses, which means he is no longer dependent on other situations. He is not depending on others. He even doesn't depend on his own body and mind. He is fixed. And how? Because he is perceiving the super soul. Hmm? Supposing you are very disturbed, but you find someone who's not at all disturbed in that situation, and somehow you are happy being with him, although you have lost everything and your position is miserable, but you find someone who's really happy, peaceful, at least you get happiness by being with him. So this person, although there is opportunity to get distressed and disturbed or getting depressed, because he's able to see the super soul with him, just like Arjuna was with Krishna. He chose Krishna like compared to Duryodhana, who chose the army. Because Arjuna was convinced that as long as I have Krishna with me, even if I lose, I will ultimately come out victorious. So, what are the methods to attain this stage? First, we have to practice, and how? With the determination and Nishchayena, without deviation, Anirvinna Chetasa. Three requirements: practice with the determination and without deviation, giving up all material desires born of mental speculation. It doesn't mean give up desires, because the soul cannot give up desires, but give up material desires. Material desire means simply they come and go. Supposing you go to some shopping complex, you see so many shops advertising so many things, but you don't, you have limited money. I cannot buy everything, and I don't need everything. So we need not entertain everything. And what kind of desire they're producing by the mind? Simply mind is creating simply, and controlling all senses on all sides by the mind. Now we have five senses, and they can, even one of them can distract the mind. By seeing something, you get distracted. You hear something, you touch something, smell, taste something, you get distracted. So therefore, you have to plug out all the. Supposing a pot is there and it has many holes, just by plugging one hole is not enough. You have to plug all the holes. Similarly, all the loopholes you have to fix. And final stage is gradually coming in trance through intelligence sustained by full conviction, and thus fix the mind on self alone, thinking of nothing else. Shane Shane. Shane Shane means every step. Uparamed, Buddhya, Driti Grihita. Driti means determination. Grihitaya. Atma Samstam Manak Kritva Nadit Api Chintaye. Chintaye, thinking of nothing else. So basically, what is the success formula? Okay, you have controlled the mind, but again the mind's nature is to go away. Then you have to bring it back. Uh, so just because you have controlled once doesn't mean, supposing you have achieved some perfection in something, doesn't mean you'll remain perfect. There's a tendency that you may fall behind. Then again you should do something to bring it back. Just like a mobile, you're charging, it has 100% charged, but then again you have to recharge it. Similarly, how to bring back yato yato nischalati manas chanchalam astiram tato tata niyamyaitat atmanyeva vasham nayat. From wherever the mind wanders due to its flickering and unsteady nature, due to passion or past attachment. Why is the mind flickering? Because of its passion. Passion means artificially it is creating some desire. Oh, I can enjoy. And so you should curb that. And at a past attachment, because of past habits, you have not learned from the past habits, then mind will give you some options. One must certainly withdraw the mind. Here, there's no option. You have to bring it back under the control of the self. Um, so this way, he can experience the bliss of samadhi. Actually, you are more happy not trying to fulfill the desire. We think that sometimes many experiences we have like this. You think, I must eat this. As long as you don't eat it, you're so disturbed. But after eating, you're feeling miserable. I was much happy without eating this. Or you want to go to a movie and you think you're anticipating, okay, I'll enjoy this, enjoy this. After going, you're thinking, better, maybe I should not have gone here. So this is the problem with the mind. So comes to the stage of Brahmabhuta, realizing Atma and Paramatma. So ultimately, satisfaction is coming from the soul and the super soul only, because they are the permanent ones. Brahma, the yogi whose mind is peaceful, prashanta manasam, by being fixed on me, attains supreme bliss, sukham uttamam. What is supreme bliss? Bliss means happiness which never ends. Hmm? He is devoid of passion. Why is he able to experience happiness all the time? Because he is devoid of passion. Passion means, as I told you, unwanted distractions, unwanted desires. Huh? Supposing you're a very rich person and someone is telling, okay, you give me this money, you can invest here or you can invest here. And you listen to them and later you regret. I could have better kept the money safe and sound and used it for some other purpose. So free of sin, akalmasham. So why we end up cultivating this unwanted desires? Because of this sinful nature. Sinful nature means you go against your own conscience. Realizes his qualitative identity with Brahman, Brahma Bhuta. Brahma Sansparsha. Okay, Brahma Bhuta means first of all, you know about yourself. That is not enough. You should also feel connected to someone superior to you. Just like when you come to this institute, you have some qualification by yourself. You qualified yourself to come here. But that is not enough. You have to get connected to some person who's more qualified than you. Similarly, knowing yourself is not sufficient. You should connect yourself with the super soul, who is all powerful. Thus, by constant practice, self-control yogi is freed from all sin. So even though you have a tendency to do mistakes, because you're connected to a person who never does mistake, even if you fall down, he will help you to recover back. And context, the Supreme Spirit, Brahma Sanskrit, attains supreme bliss. He is called Jivan Mukta, liberated even in this life. So although you can get happiness from yourself, you need some help from someone who will never fall from his position. Now, okay, if you reach this stage, what about others? What about the world? Will I become secluded from this world? Many people have this doubt. If I do this devotion, maybe my family members, friends will not uh, like to be with me, or I will not be to like to be with them, and maybe I'll become isolated. I will be miss out on all the enjoyment in life and all the opportunities in life. No, here it says, Sarva Bhutastam Atmanam. A true yogi observes me, the super soul in all beings. He can understand everything about this world and the people around him. So, Sarva Bhutatma Chatmani, and also sees every being in me. He can see the connection of everything and every person with the Supreme Lord. Hmm? Just like there are so many people, maybe some people on this Zoom, they are connected. So they are able to benefit because of that connection, and I am able to benefit them, or I am benefiting by them because of the connection. And Ikshate Yoga Yuktatma, indeed, self-realized person sees me. Sarvatra Samadu Darshana, Supreme Lord everywhere. So again repeated, Yomam Pashyati Sarvatra, Sarvam Cha Maya Pashyati, Tasyaham na Pranashyami, Sachame na Pranashyati. For one who sees me everywhere and sees everything in me, I am never lost to him, nor is he ever lost to me. Just like if I have a mobile internet, wherever I go, I'll feel connected because that connection is there. Similarly, if I am connected to the super soul who is actually connecting me with this world and the people, they will be connected with me and I will be connected. So because many times we are worrying, okay, if I die, what happens? What will happen to my family? Or how they will also feel, okay, this person dies, what will happen to us? But no problem, uh, because we are connected to the super soul, we can still connect. There are living evidences. Anita Murjani, you can do a Google search on Anita Murjani. She wrote a book called Dying to be Me. Huh? Okay, dying to be me, which means even though she died, almost died, 3 to 4 stage cancer, but she went into a state of consciousness where she could connect with her brother who was across the continent, or to connect with her father who had passed away. And then she could come back. They spoke to her and she could recover. So, living proof. So, what are the actions of a perfect yogi? Okay, inside he is stable, outside, how does he behave? Worship me as one, though situated in all entities. Basically, he respects everyone. Hmm. Supposing I know you're all IIT students, I respect you because you're connected to the organization. So similarly, when he sees the connection with all living entities with the super soul, because he has respect for the super soul, he is able to respect everyone, and they also see his connection with the super soul. They are able to, because they are able to respect him, and he is able to respect him. So respect him means what? He can coexist with them. We ultimately, man is a social animal, which means we are depending on others, and others are depending on us. But something is blocking us in relating with people. But when we see the connection with the super soul and others' connection with that, we are able to harmonize that relationship. And seeing all beings equally by comparison to his own self, and considers their happiness and distress as his own. Right now, the problem is we think I am enjoying and others are not enjoying the way I am enjoying, or I'm not enjoying the way others are enjoying, or I think I'm suffering and others don't know my suffering, or his suffering, his problem, let him suffer, I cannot help him. So this is the problem. But a person who is a perfect yogi is able to relate with others' happiness and others' distress, and others are able to understand his happiness and his distress, and they're able to help each other. Huh? So now Arjuna asked one question. Okay, it's all perfect, but as long as I'm attending this class, okay, fine. But once I go to meditate, totally different. I'm totally opposite nature. So Arjuna had this question that this may not be long lasting. Maybe momentary, I can get this realization, understanding, but it's not going to be lost for long. So especially he says that, okay, there are some friends, my family members, I'm okay with them, but total stranger comes, I cannot believe him, and suddenly he does something and goes away. At least I can understand a known person does something harm to me, I can forgive him and get back to normal. But I don't know this person, suddenly he came, did some problem and left, and why, what is happening to me? So therefore Arjuna had this doubt. So basically, Arjuna says, for me to practice this system which you're telling is not practical. And so then, especially, what is the problem with the fickle mind? The mind can, uh, mm, because the mind is restless and unsteady. Even if you try to convince me, my mind is not agreeing to this. So then, chanchalam hi mana Krishna pramati balabhadridam tasyaham nigraham manye vayor ivasa dushkaram. He is explaining himself his problem. Just like you go to the doctor, unless you explain your problem, he cannot give a solution, although he knows has the solution. Similarly, but Arjuna knows what is his problem. What is his problem? The mind is flickering. Flickering means one time it's accepting, next moment it's rejecting. And turbulent. Turbulent means constantly changing. And obstinate, stubborn. It doesn't move from one point. And very strong. Even though it is wrong, the mind keeps arguing it is right. To subdue the mind, I think, is more difficult than control the wind. Even the wind we can control by windmill, putting up a windmill. You go to the southern portion of Tamil Nadu, Tuticorin, there are windmills. The strong wind is blowing, but they are able to use that wind power. But this mind, I cannot make good use of it, or I cannot get rid of it. So uh, now another problem is, even if I say I don't care about the mind, let whatever thoughts come, let them, I will do whatever the mind says. But the problem is your intelligence becomes compromised. So, although the intelligence has been said to be superior to the mind, right now the intelligence has become dead. So then Krishna gives a solution that you have to practice. Unless you practice this mind control, it is not going to be possible. And further, you need detachment, which means the mind has to be properly engaged. If a child is making mischief, you tell him not to do mischief, he will listen one time, but you have to keep on telling him. But then you have to give him some positive engagement. So Asamshayam, Krishna agrees with Arjuna that yes, Asamshayam hi Mahabaho Mano Durnigraham Chalam Abhyasena tu Kaunteya Vairagena cha Grihyate. Now, what is the conclusion? Mind control is a must for yoga. Even though you say it is difficult, it is very essential. And because self-realization is difficult unless you practice mind control. But it's possible for one whose mind is controlled and endeavors by appropriate means. Although it is difficult, just like it was difficult to get into IIT, you know very well. But you followed some process and then it was possible. So there's nothing which is impossible, provided you know the follow the means. So another nice example Krishna says, just like you're trying to light a fire and simultaneously you're putting few water on it. So like that, or you're pressing the accelerator and again putting the brake. So something like that, if you're trying to do yoga and you're not practicing mind control, then you're defeating the whole purpose. So basically, now somewhat Arjuna is convinced that mind control is essential. The process is different. Okay, at least you accept that mind control is essential. Maybe you may not be able to achieve mind control by this process. Then Krishna will give an option, alternative, but nevertheless mind control is necessary. Then the next question Arjuna asks is, okay, I start this process and supposing I fail, then so he's also giving an example. Supposing a cloud is there and the wind is blowing, and then sometimes you see the cloud breaks into parts. A big cloud breaks into a big cloud and a small cloud, and the big cloud at least will sustain for some more time. The small cloud, very likely it will get disintegrated. Okay, now I have been part of society. I was living in society, and you told me you do this yoga, and I'm doing this yoga, and I'm failed here, and I go back to society, and they say you failed here and you failed there. So people think that devotion means something he has failed in material life, and that's why he came to devotion, and there also he failed. So that is the question which Arjuna is asking. Then, so why does he fail? Because people choose different options. Some people they want to attain perfection through work, and they may succeed or may not succeed. Some people try to attain perfection through knowledge, and there also, you know, some may succeed, some may fail. And some people try to attain success to bhakti. But Krishna says in this bhakti process, even if you fail, if you are to fail, you can continue from there. Just like sometimes lawyers, they do not get that final degree, but they are allowed to practice law, maybe at a lower level, or they are practicing medicine. They want to going into medicine, and supposing even if they do not become a qualified doctor, they are given licensed medical practitioner. They can still practice medicine. So like that, some provisions are there in the legal field or the medical field. Similarly, in devotion also, even if you are not successful, you are given a facility to continue from that situation. And Krishna gives many examples. And the problem with Karma Yoga and Jnana Yoga, if you failed, then you have to begin from square one. Just like some courses are there, if you have failed in that course, you have to begin again from the beginning. But in some countries, you can discontinue this, you can change to other course, and this options are there. No misfortune, O Arjuna, one who is engaged in auspicious activities does not meet with destruction or misfortune either in attaining spiritual goals and material goals. In other words, this is the process of devotion, as we'll see in the next chapter. Devotion means knowing about the material world as well as the spiritual world perfectly. So if you become a devotee, you will shine both materially and spiritually. That is the guarantee which Krishna says. One question may arise. I just began, I just attended 1 or 2 sessions and I stopped. I stopped after 10 sessions. I could not come. Then like that, similarly, a person failed in yoga in the beginning and the advanced stage. So what will be their destination? Then Krishna gives assurance that the person failed in the beginning. Why he failed in the beginning? Because he had some desires. And those desires distracted him from the goal. So then what Krishna does? Okay, because the desire distracted you, let him first get satisfied by the desire. There are some instances where a person failed in the yoga, then he was allowed to enjoy for some time, and once he got satisfied with that enjoyment, then he could come back. So that is one level. Another person, he could overcome all the desires, but still he failed due to certain circumstances. Then what does Krishna does? From wherever he left off, he is given opportunity. Supposing out of 10 years, at the 9th year, you got stuck up. then they won't make you go through again the 9 years. They will say, okay, we'll make some provision by which you can continue from the 9th year. So similarly, Krishna says, for such a person, he is born in a devotee family. He doesn't have to again go through the Karma Yoga, Ashtanga Yoga, the Jnana Yoga. He can directly, although Karma Yoga, Jnana, Ashtanga Yoga can lead to Bhakti, he doesn't have to go through that. He can directly begin Bhakti process. So Krishna gives many examples also of this. And the conclusion is attaining perfection. So one has to sincerely endeavor. The ultimately sincerity and being washed of all contamination ultimately achieves the supreme goal of liberation after many births of practice. You say, okay, here it says many births of practice. So does it mean I have to be born again and again to achieve this? No. Even in the same life, we are going through many births. Actually, body is constantly changing. Even 1 minute, you can achieve perfection. So within this lifetime itself, if we practice it properly, then we can see perfection even before the end of life. Previously, before even completing the course, people used to get opportunity abroad. Pre-app they call it. So even before you reach perfection, you know what is next. So that is the advantage of this process. Then Krishna concludes this chapter by saying how this bhakti is superior to karma, jnana, and yoga. Tapasvibhyo adhiko yogi. We see people attain perfection. If you ask how he achieved perfection, oh, he is very austere, he did so many things, he did this, he did this. And you may say, oh, I cannot do that. No problem. Krishna says you become a devotee. Jnanibhyopi vadodikaha. A yogi is greater than emperors. Some person has done lot of research. Yes, all that. No, you cannot do, no problem. You do devotion. And karmibhyosto yogi. Yogi is greater than the fruity worker. Some person has done all types of work. One person has studied all the scriptures, all knowledge he has, or some person has performed all types of austerities, and you have not done any of that. No problem if you still become a devotee, because Krishna has achieved all this. Supposing you have a rich person, famous person, beautiful person, intelligent person, strong person, renounced person. What you cannot achieve in a lifetime, if you make friendship with him, you get everything. So, Tasmad Yogi Bhavarjuna. Therefore, Arjuna in all circumstances become a yogi. So, here he is referring to a devotion, taking to devotion. And what is the last verse? Again, he re-emphasized that Yoginam api sarvesham madgate nantaratma shraddhavan bhajate yomam same yukta tapomaha. All yogis, the one who, because you want to achieve perfection in anything, ultimately perfection is coming from God only. So of all yogis, one who always abides in me, thinks of me within himself, worships and renders service unto me with great faith. So here Shraddhavan. The faith means you should have the trust that if I do devotion, I will be successful in all aspects of life. He is the most intimately united with me in yoga. That's why the last verse of the Bhagavad Gita also says, what made Arjuna successful in this battle? Although he was fighting with the most powerful warriors, he could succeed because he had Yogeshwara with him, Krishna, who was giving perfection to everyone. Okay, so we'll stop here. Any comments or questions? Okay, we'll make it available. Or we'll take your contact. Boys are here. I will pass it on to them and they will give it to you. That Pankaj is there, and maybe Dinkar will come. Before we end the session, you again meet us. Before you end the session, after this we have some more things. You meet us personally. I will arrange for that during the week. Otherwise, also soft copy you can get on the internet. Can do.
Okay, sure. I will arrange. I brought it last week. I could not bring this week. I will arrange for it. Any comments or questions related to today's class? Feel free to ask or comment or any doubts. Give the mic to some. Or what you understood, you can also tell. If you don't have any doubts, at least some point you could understand with this class, I can maybe improve on that. Yeah, I heard that. I told the answer. Hindi, he wants Hindi. So you pass the mic to each of them and tell each of you tell one point you could understand in this session. Just one sentence. Yeah.
We have this really explained the steps of Ashtang. Eight steps.
Yes. Can you help me share this one for others also? There's a question here as to what are the 8 limbs of the yoga process or the Ashtanga yoga. One is the yama. Yama means what you should avoid. Just like you are a patient, you are trying to recover, and the doctor says you don't take this food or don't do some things. So there are some prohibitions or regulations. Then you have niyama, which means you have to do some positive things. Like for example, you have to wake up early or take a bath or some things like this. That will be niyamas. Then third is asana, the sitting postures or bodily exercises. Because unless the body is cooperating, the mind cannot be fixed. Although our objective is mind control, the body also has to cooperate. The body also has its own dynamics. As I said, there are 6 energy centers in the body, starting from the base of the spine till the top of the skull. So if there is some disturbance in this energy, because these energy points are connected to the universe, cosmic,
they're related to the 5 material elements: earth, water, fire, air, ether. There's some synchrony in this universe. So if the body is not maintained properly, there's a disturbance in these energy centers, and that will affect the mind. So that is the third one. Fourth is pranayama, or breathing exercises. Just like you have the hydraulic and pneumatic machines. Pneumatic means with air, you are trying to move the machine or operate the machine. Similarly, all the limbs and the organs in our body are able to function because of the movement of different types of air. Some airs are visible, some are perceptible, some cannot be perceived. But there is nevertheless some, just like if I have to move this hand, the air should flow. If I move my leg or digestion or whatever I do, the air movement is very important. And depending on my breathing also, my lifetime can be increased or shortened. So therefore, this breath control plays a very important, because the breath control is related to the mind. Mind is somewhat has a connection with the breathing. So I gave the example, when you're anxiety, you breathe fast, and when you're stable, you become breath is less. This is the fourth one. And then is pratyahara, means withdrawing the senses from sense objects. What does it mean? You regulate your seeing, smelling, tasting, touching, and hearing. You are seeing something. If you keep on spending time just seeing or hearing or eating or whatever, that becomes a problem. So you artificial necessities of life. You think I have to get this, I have to get that, and over endeavoring. That has to be regulated. Pratyahara. Ahara means supply, resources. And then dharana. Okay, these first 5 things are telling what to do, what not to do. But then still you need something positive engagement. So that is the fixing the mind on the form. What form? Just like before you joined IIT, you were doing something, but you are always meditating on the goal. So the goal of the yoga process is to realize the super soul, because the super soul is in the same situation, not disturbed, whereas I am getting disturbed. Just like in the hospital, so many patients are there, doctors also there, because the doctors can knows how to become free from the disease, or he is not diseased, he is able to help the patient. Similarly, the super soul is there in our body. He is not feeling any pleasure and pain, whereas I am subjected to pleasure and pain. So when you are able to get knowledge about the super soul, that is known as dhyana. And that increases in meditation. It's known as dhyana, where you're getting closer and closer to that objective. And perfectly samadhi means you are exactly able to get guidance from that super soul and act according to his guidance. Just like Arjuna was there, he was getting constant guidance from Krishna, although Arjuna was making many mistakes. Although after he heard the Bhagavad Gita, also Arjuna was making mistakes. But because he was always taking direction from Krishna, he could come out of the problems. So similarly, the person in samadhi, he is able to perfectly understand what the super soul is telling him and is able to follow him. So these are the 8 stages of the Ashtanga Yoga. But I said that it is difficult to practice, especially in this age. That somewhat. Have any other question? So pictorially, it is explained here anyway. Yeah, please. And use the mic. Okay, she is asking a very intelligent question. She says that we said that if you fail in the process of devotion, you will be able to continue next time. Supposing I have read Bhagavad Gita up to 6 chapters and I died. Does it mean I can start directly from the 7th chapter? Yes, that is one sense true. Like an example is given of the Jadabharata. He had attained almost perfection, but he got attached to a deer. And even though he was in the body of a deer, he could remember his past life. It's known as Jati Smara. So we see some child prodigies are there. How they are able to do some wonders in such a small age, because they are carrying memories from their past life, some talents from their past life. Otherwise, it's impossible to logically explain how a child prodigy is able to do some things extraordinary. So if that is the case, of course, in principle, he may not remember all the verses of the 6 chapters, which supposing, but in essence, he will carry the essence with him. So from this, we can just like sometimes you write a program and it gets to the hardware crashes or something. You have this experience. You have written a program or written some document, and somehow the hard crashed. But you remember somewhat how you prepared that code or how you wrote that document, and you are able to reconstruct it. Although it may not be exactly, but some impression is still there. You're able to come back to that. So that advantage will be there. Yes. Yes, both yes and no. Yes, in the sense, depending, just like you have in Mumbai, you have fast train and slow train. If your objective is to go from place A directly to the destination, obviously you will take the fast train, isn't it? But if your destination is something in between and this fast train doesn't stop there, then you are forced to take this slow train. Similarly, if depending on your desire, the goals you set in your life, for them accordingly, karma yoga is prescribed. If some person is only interested in enjoying the result of the action, then karma yoga. In that, but then he is not getting the result which he desired, and therefore he is not even doing the work. Then he is telling to do nishkama karma yoga. Okay, but then nishkama karma yoga also is not satisfied, because supposing you have very good food before you, but your health is not good, then you cannot enjoy it although you worked hard and got the food. So supposing you worked hard to get the money, but in the process you spoiled your health, then money is there, but I'm not going to enjoy that. Similarly, these are the problems with this other yoga process. Kama karma yoga, nishkama karma yoga, and ashtanga yoga, all these. Because you have set an intermediate goal, for that you have to do like this, but still you may not be satisfied. So why the satisfaction will not be there? Because your desires are not pure. So therefore Krishna says, unless you purify your desire, even if you follow the process to achieve the desire, many times we have seen we set a goal, we achieved it, but still we are not happy. Till you achieve it, you think I will achieve it and will become happy. I'll complete my PhD, I'll be the most happy person. I'll marry and I'll become the most happy person. I'll get a job. Like this, we make so many plans, but even after reaching that, we see we are not happy, which means the desire is not pure. So in these other yoga processes, you are cultivating, you are doing some action to achieve the desire, but you will not be satisfied. So therefore Krishna says, and come to bhakti yoga. It's like going to the topmost floor by taking the elevator. You don't have to go. If your objective is to go to the topmost floor, then you need not go by step to all the other floors. So if your ultimate aim is life is to overcome desires, because no matter how much you try, the desires will not make you happy. Because your soul and what's satisfying the soul is different from what satisfies the body. Anyway, the point is, bhakti yoga, it can achieve a goal which is cannot be achieved by this other yoga process, and so it is the highest. That's why it says na cha adhikam. And you want to answer her in different way? You have a different. Okay, fine. Okay. So is that okay? Not only that, supposing you have less money and you want to, you go to a shop and something is very costly, you cannot buy that, then naturally you settle down with the lower one. Similarly, if you're not prepared for bhakti, even to come to bhakti, you need some qualification. If you don't have that qualification, then you settle down with this lower process and you're satisfied with that. But
no matter, even if the like Himalaya is compared to the
mountain, if you climb the Himalayas, then you need not climb the other mountains, because if your objective is to climb a mountain so that you can see better what is below, then if you climb the Himalayas, definitely it's better than climbing the other mountain. You need not again try to climb the other. So if you come to bhakti process, you need not go to the other process. But if you don't come to bhakti, at least you do those processes. That is the recommendation. Yeah. Here it says about sansparsha, Brahma sansparsha. That Satchit Ananda feature, that he can experience that. Right now, our tendency is to forget that nature. So back to Godhead, we say back to Godhead means going back to Godhead means attaining that abode, where we feel the presence. Like on the battle of Kurukshetra, everyone could see Krishna, but they are near Krishna. It's on the battle in front of them, front of him. But they were not close in one sense. They were close in the sense that they are on the same battlefield with as Arjuna was, but they were not close in another sense that they were not willing to follow the instruction of Krishna. Huh? So here, attaining the abode means attaining the directions from the Paramatma, or in the case of Bhagavan, directions of Bhagavan. So sthana means Krishna is, his position is to be our well-wisher. And we saw in the last chapter conclusion, he is the Bhoktaram Yagnatapasam Sarvaloka Maheshwaram Suhrudam. To realize that is attaining the abode of the Lord. Just the same example, all the people in the battlefield were with Krishna only, but they were not with Krishna also. Like Duryodhana, you could see Dhritarashtra, everyone had experience of Krishna, but they were not with Krishna. In other words, they had not attained the full benefit of Krishna, they could not get. So attaining the abode means getting the full benefit of the presence of the super soul and the Supreme Lord. Yeah, next one. Yes. Yeah, even in other words, Prahlad, it didn't matter to Prahlad whether Hiranyakashipu was harsh to him. Even though Hiranyakashipu are just like something, maybe the puppy dogs are there, they bite the mother. But the mother doesn't take it as it is coming to bite me. It takes it as a affection. So similarly, when Prahlada is there and Hiranyakashipu is trying to attack him or harm him, he doesn't feel it as a hatred. So that is the position. Even if the snake is biting a scorpion, nature it is to bite. It doesn't mean that the Pandita, he sees a scorpion and snake and he tries to embrace it or put it. No. So even if that nature is there, it will not affect him. The same example, Yudhishthira was there, Duryodhana. Krishna sent Duryodhana to find out a good person in his kingdom. And Duryodhana came back and told, I don't find any good person. And then Yudhishthira said, I didn't find any bad person. So which means it doesn't mean that there are no good people or no bad people. It means they are there, but that doesn't affect you. Normally, when you become bad, you say, because of him, I became bad. Or because of him, I became good. Or I am good only. I by nature, I am very good, but he provoked me. I am nice person, but he provoked me. That's why I became a bad person. So, which means you are affected. So here seeing means it doesn't mean he sees, he knows this person is bad person, this is a tiger or this lion, but he is not affected by it. Yeah. He's not overcome by their natures. So in that sense, he is just like in a drama is there. In a drama, one person is playing the role of a comedian or a villain. But as long as you appreciate the drama, you won't blame them. Oh, why this fellow is a villain? I should punish him, or this comedian is useless. We don't say that because we know they are contributing for it. So similarly, this devotee, he knows yes, he is a villain or he is a demon. He is doing something. He is playing his role, but he is not affected because he knows the overall plan of the Lord and he knows the presence. Because Prahlada could see Lord Nrsimhadev there. So even though Hiranyakashipu is a disturbing element, because Prahlada is always seeing Nrsimhadev, so it doesn't matter to him. Even if assuming that Hiranyakashipu is really a bad person, because he is able to see the Lord Nrsimhadev and he knows that Lord Nrsimhadev will protect me, it doesn't really matter to him whether Hiranyakashipu is good or bad. Okay, I think. Okay. We'll do one chanting, round of chanting. So thank you for all those who participated online. We'll meet again next week on the 7th chapter, which is the beginning of Bhakti. Yes. Those online can end the session. Host, I request the host to end the session.